attached are artists to their own creations?
I think a lot. To your point, like my
there's a
mom
Buddhist angle here, and
my mom would always in my house, like Diwali cleaning, they would just throw all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I would like hate that. And I still like have fights in my family. And I'm like, why didn't you save like all of those? Because I feel like looking back, it would be helpful to see. Also when you're learning, it's just nice to know.
Yeah.
Like if you have visual examples, you know how you've progressed. So I think from a very technical sort of point of view, like from a learner's point of view, it's good to have those records. You can't, everything can't be out of imagination. I like that technique for like a bit of when you're like learning or like teaching them the values of why you should be pursuing art. But I think like as a technical point of view, it's kind of, I would love it if people had records of art because then you can really see.
I meant before 5. I meant before 5.
But it's
After that, of course, it becomes
sweet,
one has to record whatever.
Yeah. Sorry, you were saying, Hansika?
No, I was just saying it's bittersweet when you sell a piece, right? You do have an attachment with the work because you spend so much time with it. And the moment it's gone, you're happy that your work's selling, you're doing well. But at the same time, the emotional parting with the work it still does affect me quite a bit.
Part of your soul.
Yeah, it's part of your soul. Yeah.
And I guess like another thing is also how much of your art is created keeping the audience or viewer in mind. Not talking about sales here, guys. I'm talking about, okay, so one thing is instinctive, creative expression, whether you were 5 years old or now, you just have to create. It's almost like inherent now to you. But how much of that creation is with this idea that there is someone on the other side who is going to be interacting with, engaging with my art? And I feel in practices like Isha and Hansika especially, there is this angle, the person, the viewer is very, very important because there's this angle of that connection, with each other and with our surroundings. And so I think, is it a very subjective thing, or do you all feel like somewhere the end viewership is at the back of your mind as well when you're making art?
I think it's very subconscious. I don't think it's conscious, but I can't say it doesn't exist. Because I think at the end of the day, what we create is authentic to us, not the audience. And the moment we start creating for the audience, we aren't the artist anymore. So I think it's important for all of us to, I feel like at least, we tend to as artists largely create what is authentic to us, but perhaps a subconscious exists because we do need to earn our bread from selling this piece of work. So I feel like largely it's very personal with maybe like a dash of will people appreciate this as well.
This is actually a continuous question that I have been investigating for myself, and I'm fortunate enough to have the gallerist and a gallery supporting my whims with my art. Most of my work that consciously make it a point that there is no fear in my head of whether it will be acquired or not. And there's this form of meditation that I follow called no mind meditation, where you do not articulate an idea and you implement it without articulating an idea. It's done, of course, with gibberish originally, but it comes to my art, and obviously most of my works that come out are more of my monologue or a soliloquy than anything else to do with the audience. And so I'm dancing in my own tune. I meet a guy on Juhu Beach. He keeps dancing on his own, absolutely on his own. I go there for my runs and walks, and everyone literally stops and watches him because they somehow relate to his that whole energy. Everyone wants to do that somewhere, and that's the connection. And I guess if I take that example into art, and I feel the same way, that I'm a maverick who is in my own world doing my own things, and then I'm nurtured and supported by my gallerist Sanjana and my curator, and that kind of is a very beautiful space to be in.
To your dancers thing, like I do believe painting is like an act of liberation.
Yeah.
And it's a very inward sort of an act. So when I'm painting, I'm really not thinking about anyone. Like I do think about who's your audience on the larger like contextual way. But I think a painting is like an extremely personal, detaching sort of a process. Like I really have to like cut off to like really reach that essence of making. But when I'm printmaking, maybe through the politics and the history of the medium, it's always sort of perceived, and it's kind of like a conjoined thing of like viewership is attached with the medium. Because the history of printmaking was always like, that's what we had first. We didn't have like digital media, TVs and any of that. So it was always like paper was meant for the audience. So everything that was built, images, text, it was like the news portal, it was for the audience, not the maker. So I feel like when I'm in my print hat, it's like an automatic thing that I think about the viewership. But I think that's like the interesting part where when I start mixing painting with printmaking and drawing is when those conversations start happening.
So that's actually very interesting because what you're saying and what's coming across is very much, it's a very personal thing, as Jayesh said, subconscious, but also medium oriented. Like the medium really, like that's why I'd also in the beginning said, you know, Hansika and Isha, because I think that mediums, I had attended your exhibition where the viewer was taken inside and the heartbeat of the viewer was monitored in order to create a piece of, so without the viewer, that artwork couldn't exist. So I think that it's interesting how there's so many variations of this. And even with you, Meghna, I feel like your world is, and I love kind of seeing your art and spending time with it because it takes you into a different fantasy, surrealist landscape. And so that seems to be very much your inner world that you're sharing a bit with the audience. Can you tell us more about your thoughts around your medium?
For me, it's a very instinctive process, honestly, and it's something that is personal, but at the same time, there's an anthropomorphic quality to it where I relate to creatures that adapt around us to landscapes. So it's my personal narrative, you know, along with that I kind of take into my work. And there's layers of paper that I kind of keep pasting, and there's hidden elements and all of that. So it's a very personal journey, honestly.
So that I feel like is
it's not with so much thought about the audience.
About
I can't
the audience.
even, I mean, it's not
I feel
possible
like being
for
an
me
artist
to.
is an act of rebellion.
In a way,
Audaciousness of to decide one day that I'm going to be an artist. So in order to be that audacious and rebellious, we can't be defined by what the viewer thinks. We choose to be vulnerable and put ourselves out there to be seen through our emotions, and I think we can't allow the audience's perspective define what we create.